Seconds left in the game, only 8 to shoot. Poole turns it over.
Oh my God, bro.
Killian Hayes. Warriors had a foul to give. They would actually want Hayes to shoot free throws.
Oh my God.
Just lost his foot.
This is not a video that I thought I would be making this season. But between injuries, struggling on the road, and just issues on and off the court, the Warriors currently find themselves struggling to stay above 500, with more and more people starting to believe that getting out of the play-in should be their #1 priority, because the playoffs are no longer guaranteed. So, how do we get here? How do we get to a point where a defending champion is now struggling to make the playoffs? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about the Warriors this season, what has gone wrong, and what we might be able to expect from them. So let's get into the video. Coming into the season, the Warriors were expected to be one of the teams hoping to compete for a championship, which made a lot of sense considering they were the defending champions and also made moves during the offseason to improve the roster while keeping the existing core together. But after the All-Star break, the Warriors find themselves with a record of 30-30, but it isn't like this just happened. Well, I mean, it did, but there were glaring warning signs at the start of the season that are still showing themselves even 4 months later. To start the season, the Warriors were awful on the road. They didn't even win a game on the road until their 9th road game against the Houston Rockets. Their streak of 0-8 on the road to start the year was something that no defending champion in NBA history had ever done before. But even after that first win, their performance on the road has been terrible the entire year. They currently find themselves with a record of 7-23 on the road, which is by far the worst road winning percentage by any team still in the playoff race. But of course, it's not like they've just been losing games. They lost Andrew Wiggins due to an adductor strain in early December and were without him for about a month. And just 2 weeks later, they lost Stephen Curry to a shoulder injury that would also keep him out for about a month, before losing him again to a leg injury just 2.5 weeks later, an injury that he is still dealing with. And in the games where they didn't play, the Warriors now have a record of 10-12, and that's pretty much the season right there. The Warriors struggle without their 2 best players, and that's about all there is to it. Except, it isn't. Because as much as I would like to hide behind the excuse of just not having Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins for a large portion of the year, that wouldn't be an honest representation of what this team actually is. Because while the Warriors are 10-12 without those 2 on the court, they are only 17-15 in games where they both play. The reason that a lot of people are starting to lose faith in this team is because they haven't shown us that they have the capability to consistently win games no matter what team they're playing. There's really no consistency with wins or losses. They've beaten some of the best teams in the league, and they've also lost to some of the worst teams in the league, and that happens all the time. However, it's the way that they're losing these games that becomes problematic. The Warriors have had more than a handful of games this year just blowing double-digit leads, often in the 4th quarter. I'm not going to waste your time going through them all, and yes, that is actually how many there were. I'm just going to quickly go through some of the highlights, if you can even call it that. Like the game in Utah earlier this year, where they managed to lose a game in which they held a 4-point lead with 10 seconds left, or this game against the Brooklyn Nets where they held a 12-point lead with about 6 minutes left, or this game in Minnesota where they held a 13-point lead with just over 10 minutes left. They would go on to lose all of these games. And that's worrying, because throughout the season, we've been having conversations about the bench versus the starters. At the beginning of the season, the starters were playing about how we expected, but the bench was playing so terribly that there were points where it felt like this team had to win the same game 4 different times. But over time, the bench players slowly showed signs of improvement, and in late December, the Warriors actually went on a 5-game win streak while Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins were both out with injuries. 3 of those 5 wins coming against teams that are currently in the playoff race. So the bench is pretty much caught up now. So the problem is the fact that these games were lost with the starters on the court. It was them that blew these leads. And there lies the problem. When the veterans with the championships are the ones choking away the games, then what exactly do you have? Well, you have a team that is struggling to stay above 500 and looking to be completely fine with it. Which then brings us to the trade deadline, where NBA fans expected the Warriors to be very aggressive given the current situation, and they did make moves during this time. These moves included trading James Wiseman in a 4-team deal, in which they got back Gary Payton II, and that's it. That's the only move they made. Now, I'm not saying they should have gone full 2018 Cavs mode and traded away half the team in one day, but there definitely should have been a bigger sense of urgency, especially when we started realizing that other contending teams in the Western Conference were obviously getting better. The LA Lakers getting quality pieces in D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt, the Dallas Mavericks getting Kyrie Irving, and the Phoenix Suns getting Kevin Durant. But it is worth noting that they did try to acquire OG Anunoby from Toronto, but that just didn't work out. And yes, I understand that the Warriors had no way of knowing how this GP2 situation would play out, but the point still stands. I said when that move happened that it wouldn't magically fix the problems with this team, it would just help to some degree. But now, who knows what this team is gonna do? Because they currently have one of their toughest stretches of the entire season coming up. They are facing the Timberwolves and the Blazers in their next 2 games, which can both be winnable. But after that, they have a 10-game stretch in which they face the Clippers, Pelicans, Lakers, Thunder, Grizzlies, Bucks, Suns, Clippers again, Hawks, and Grizzlies again. This might be the worst scenario that they could possibly face. And let me break down every reason why. In that 10-game stretch, they play 8 of those games against teams in the Western Conference, in a conference that is so close and so competitive right now that losing a bunch of these games could break the season. And out of these 10 games, 5 of them are against teams that are above 500. They have a 16-14 record against teams above 500. Surprisingly, however, they are actually better against these teams than they are against bad ones. They have a record of 13-16 against teams that are below 500. So who knows, this might actually work out. But the real concern is that of these 10 games, 6 of them are on the road. And like I said before, they have been atrocious on the road all season with little sign of improvement. And keep in mind, they are likely playing a big portion of these games without both Stephen Curry and Andrew Wiggins. But maybe I'm just being overly pessimistic. Say they do somehow come out of the stretch in the same position that they're currently in. That still leaves them hanging around the 9th or 10th seed with 10 games left, which pretty much guarantees that they will not have home court advantage in any playoff series that they will play, if they were to even get there. 2021 taught me to never be so sure about that. But what exactly do you think is gonna happen when you have a team that can't win games on the road and then put them into a situation where that's what they constantly need to do? I'm not being pessimistic. I'm just seeing the team for what they are, not what they could be. I've seen people throughout this season trying to justify some of these performances by saying something along the lines of, well, last season they did this, this, and this. Well, I'm sorry that I have to be the one to say it, but it is 2023 now. It is not last year anymore. This is not the same team. Of course, I appreciate last season, but when you're trying to evaluate this team in the season that they're currently in, pointing back to a different season just feels like a distraction from having the conversation about what this team actually is. And what this team is comically bad. But that's about it for me. I want to know what you guys have thought about this season so far. Do you think the Warriors are making the playoffs? I can't believe that I have to ask that. And if so, how far do you think they're going? But let me know what you think. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell to be notified when I upload. Comment down below what you want to see next. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.